Hello everybody, Martin Radner here from Radner Law Group, bringing you trial analysis. And today we're going to be discussing the Amie Harwick murder trial, which actually just started today. Hopefully we'll get this video out quickly so you can all be prepared and have this trial analysis with you as you're going through this trial. So before we jump into the analysis, please like and subscribe to this channel. Let's keep this channel growing so we can continue bringing you this trial analysis. So what the short version of this murder was that we have Amie Harwick was in a relationship with the defendant, Gareth Pursehouse, and they were in a relationship from 2009 to 2011, about a year and a half. Then they broke up, and he just threw him into a depression. He just couldn't handle life without her. He just missed her too badly, and he just wanted to get back with her, the worst way. And she had to actually get a restraining order against him. And he just couldn't get over her. He was just madly in love with her. He just too depressed, and he actually caused him to lose a job because of it. So he was not just getting over this broken relationship. So eventually, he ended up killing her or causing her death, shall we say? And those facts are not disputed. There's a lot of these facts are not disputed in this case, which is good because you can just focus on the only few questions that we have in this case. But the ultimate question in this case is that the prosecution is going to say that he premeditated and planned and lied and lay in wait to go and kill her. And the defense is going to say, no, it wasn't premeditation. It was a lesser severe. It was more like an involuntary. Certainly he caused her death. He had a cause in her death, but it's not as serious as a premeditated murder. So that is going to be the two different theories of this case. Now, there is something in California which you're going to be hearing about during this trial, a certain part of their statute, which is the lie in wait special circumstance. So they're going to be talking about the special circumstances, and part of the statute is that if you're lying in wait for somebody to come home, so then you're going to get the most serious penalty, the same as though it's a premeditated murder. So that's what you're going to be hearing about the lie in wait, and that's essentially the case. The two different theories of the case. So let's get into the actual arguments and more details of the case. We got the prosecution starting off their opening statement, the prosecutor, and he starts off very strong with a brief synopsis. This person is a cold-blooded murderer. He killed her because he just was too depressed and he was too upset that she was not getting back with him, and he just killed her. It was premeditated. He planned it out, and he just killed her. And then, he gets into the weeds of the facts of all the cases and everything like that, which is also always very good. As a prosecutor, you want to start off strong. You don't want to start off with getting into all the details, and you want to let the jury know right away. Bam! This is a person that committed a murder. Just jump right into it, and then get into the facts, lay the foundations, and everything like that. So. Something that I like that the prosecutor did here is that he started off, he says, we're going to be calling witnesses out of order. And he lets the jury know that this is beyond his control. And he kind of leads up to by saying, what are opening statements for? The opening statements are really just a roadmap to let you know what we expect the evidence to show. But the reason why it's important, he says, the reason why it's important for you to follow this opening statement is because I'm not able to call the witnesses exactly in the chronology that I want them to. If I could, I would start from the beginning, the earliest witness, and just continue down as the chronology of the case unfolds. But because he has to accommodate different witnesses' schedules, so he's going to be stuck kind of bringing witnesses in at different times. And anytime that you can tell the jury why you're doing something and you're leaving less for the jury to think about, that's always very good. So I like the part that he does right here when he tells the jury why he's going to be calling witnesses out of order.
And the reason why it's good to pay attention to these previews is because when we call witnesses, we are not able to call witnesses in the order you would expect them as things happen. We're bringing in witnesses from out of the county. We have to accommodate their schedule. So you will hear witnesses who may have known something that happened later in time testify first just to accommodate their schedule. But this will help you understand the evidence and how things happen. So
now, he jumps into more of the details of the case, which is that Amie Harwick went to a red carpet show, and she was going to the network. She was already a doctor, she was a therapist, and she was working with some of these stars, or she wanted to work with some of these stars, and therefore she was kind of going there to network and to kind of build her practice. And at the same time, Gareth Pursehouse was there as the defendant was there taking pictures. He was hired as a photographer. That was his side job, and he was there taking pictures. Now, remember, it's about 8-9 years after they already broke up, and he's not having any contact with her. He hasn't had any contact with her for a long time, and he sees her, and obviously his feelings are just still so strong for her that he just completely breaks down. He just loses it. He goes over to her and he starts crying. He starts talking to her, and he's very upset. And he's just asking her, please let us just talk. I just want to talk to you. And she does agree to talk to him. To talk to him. So she goes, and they go and they talk for about 40-45 minutes, and then she left. So the question really that we're never going to give an answer to is what exactly was said in that 45-minute conversation, and that's significant. But what we do know is that later that day, she writes herself an email. She writes to herself an email about how scared she is now after that conversation, because it seems that he just, in her email at least, it says that he just told her that he constantly thinks about her. He thinks about her all day, every day, and he cries all the time that they're not together, and he just wants them to be together. And I guess, is there any chance that they could be together? And he was just completely, letting her know about what's going on inside of him. And that terrifies her, because this is someone who's already 8-9 years, you're supposed to be broken up. You're supposed to already be getting over the person at that point, and he is absolutely not over her in the slightest. And when obsessive people can do very scary things. So she writes this email to herself, and then she also texts a friend of hers that she feels that she needs more security after having this conversation with her ex, with the defendant, Gareth. She feels that she needs more security. Take a look.
Amie Harwick, just a little bit later, at around 1:22 p.m., texts Hernando Chavez and tells him, Gareth found my number online and messaged me. I told him I didn't want to talk and wished him the best, but his response was still obsessive and scary. Handyman comes tomorrow for more locks on my windows and ordered pepper spray.
So they have some text messages after this night, just a very, very short period of time. He also calls her and leaves her a voice message, and then she just has enough and she blocks his number. She just blocks his number, and he can't get in contact with her anymore. She eventually does get more security on her house, including video cameras, but of course, the scene of the crime, there was no video camera, unfortunately, so there's no way to see exactly how this went down. But she did ramp up the security in her house. Now, something also very significant in this case is that Amie's neighbor also, during this time period, installed 2 Ring cameras. So that's also going to be significant. So now, this is all that goes on, around January 17th, 2020. A few weeks later, February 14th, 2020, and this is Valentine's Day. Now, what the jury could be thinking, and nobody made a mention of this, but it's possible, a lot of times murderers could have a specific date in mind that they feel it's appropriate for this murder. They connect it with a certain date, person's birthday, their birthday, a kid's birthday, or an anniversary date, anniversary of their first date, different types of dates that mean something to them, and then they go and commit the murder on that date. So this is Valentine's Day. So this may not be an accident. It could be the jury could be thinking, oh, what is the significance of Valentine's Day to this murder? It's very possible that this was not just an accident. And he didn't really mean it because the date actually tells us something. Anyway. So that's just some food for thought. So now you got Valentine's Day. It's February 14th. She goes out, and she is with her friends. And he goes and he breaks into her house. He breaks into her house, and before he does, he disables the Ring cameras by the neighbor's house. So he notices the neighbor has these Ring cameras, and he disables them. And that's something that the Ring camera catches. It catches him disabling it, and it also catches him wearing gloves. So it catches him wearing gloves, and it catches him disabling it.
And in the videos that we expect to be shown to you, the defendant will be wearing gloves. So this now shows, that's the first camera that's on a pole. And here's a better look at that particular Ring video. also hear evidence that when you pull down a Ring camera down for several seconds, it shuts off and then it resets itself again. Second camera, just a few feet ahead.
Now, also something that he had with him is that he had a syringe of pure nicotine, and a syringe of pure nicotine on him which held a lethal dose of pure nicotine, which is essentially poison. He's carrying poison with him in a syringe that, if injected into Amie, would kill her, and that's what the experts are going to say.
You're going to hear evidence that when the defendant broke into her home, that on his person he had a syringe with a brown liquid that detectives will tell you originally they didn't know what it was. That will be, after it's tested by chemists, by the FBI, that's pure nicotine in a pure form. It's a poison. You're going to hear from one of our experts on nicotine who will tell you that was a lethal dose of nicotine that if injected into Amie Harwick, it would kill her.
Now, what gets a little more interesting in this case is that the nicotine, this lethal dose of nicotine, actually was never administered. He did not kill Amie with this. He actually, the cause of death, as the examiner is going to say, is that this is actually from strangulation and the fact that she was dropped off a balcony. That's what happened over this case. There was a struggle, and he eventually, either she fell off the balcony or he pushed her off the balcony or dropped her off the balcony, and that is how she died. So it was not from the lethal dose of the nicotine.
The cause of death, as the coroner will testify, is, as I said, severe damage, severe trauma from that fall, including damage to the brain, damage to the liver, the pelvis, and including manual strangulation.
Now, something else that the prosecutor mentions here, which I just thought was a little interesting, is he mentions that the detectives also noticed that there's a pool of urine in a certain area of the house.
Also, in that hallway between the media room and her bedroom, the first officers that arrived found what appeared to them to be a pool of urine.
And he kind of just leaves us hanging with that information. And I always say, if you're going to give information to the jury, let them know what to do with it. Don't just give them random information and hope that they know what to do with it. He doesn't say whose urine it was. Was it his? Was it hers? And what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that she was so terrified that she just relieved herself? What exactly are you trying to tell the jury with that? And he just kind of leaves us hanging. So I just thought that was a little interesting. Now, he also mentions, the prosecutor, one of his last points is that 46 minutes after he left Amie, after Amie was dead, 46 minutes later, he texts a friend of his in response to something, "Ha ha, that's funny."
So this is 46 minutes after the defendant has left Amie. He texts this woman back, "Ha ha ha, that's funny."
And that's significant because we're going to see what the defense is going to argue in a minute, and we'll see why that plays into how that kind of hurts the defense's case, defense's arguments in this case, the defense's theory in this case. So is there any problems with the prosecution's case? The prosecution seems to have a very strong case, and certainly they do. He was obviously depressed. He was obviously obsessed with her, and he certainly came over. He broke into his house. There's undisputed facts. He came there, and she's dead. She ended up dead by partially she was strangled, and partially she was dropped off of the roof, so of the balcony. So, what's the problem with the prosecution case? So I guess one of the questions that the jury could be thinking is that why didn't he use the syringe to kill her? I mean, if that's the whole point here, that he premeditated this and he was going to go and kill her with this syringe, and that's what the prosecution is suggesting, that this is all premeditated, he was going to take the syringe and go kill her. Well, why didn't he kill her with the syringe then? You had enough strength to go and drop her off the balcony. That's what we're suggesting. So then why don't you just go simply? It's much cleaner to just go and inject her with this poison and then leave it at that. So, that could be a question that the jury's having in their minds. However, I don't think it's a crippling question because he Could be that was one of his options. It was one of his options. It could be the prosecution going to make this argument in closing argument. That was one of his options, was to do that. But the other option would be, okay, I can strangle her. I'm much stronger than her. I'm much bigger than her. As the prosecution shows also in his opening statement, he was much bigger, much taller, much stronger. And, any way possible, he's going to go kill her, whether it's through the syringe or whether it's through some other means. So, not a crippling question, but certainly, a question that the jury could be thinking about as the trial goes on, and certainly in the deliberations. Okay, so that leads us to the defense's opening statement. So the defense opening statement was that this was all a big misunderstanding. Of course, we agree that he was obsessed with her, and he was certainly depressed, but he only wanted to talk to her. That's the point of his visit, was just to talk to her. And as you see from before, he just wanted to talk to her. He kept texting her, and he was going over to her, and he was just saying, let's talk. And she didn't want to talk, and he just needed to talk to her. And that's why he went over that night. Take a look.
The evidence will show that he was reacting from within this fog of depression, and that he was going to talk to her. That his only intention that night was to speak to her. The evidence will show that he never intended on killing her.
Now, the defense continues to go back to the story where Amie left him, and when Amie left him, when they broke up, it sent him into a debilitating depression. And when he saw her that night, it caused him even to just completely lose it, completely get even more depressed. And when he was talking to a friend of his friend said that she was afraid that he might hurt himself. He might actually hurt himself, so with the suggestion that maybe he's going to become suicidal from this depression, is going to reach a point where it's going to make him suicidal. Take a look.
Ms. Manslaughter is concerned that he might hurt himself.
And he decided, this is the defense's argument, that he decided, the defendant, Gareth, that the only thing he could do to deal with this depression is to talk to Amie. He needed to talk to her, and that was going to help him get over this depression. He just needed to get things off his chest. He just needed to just talk to her, and that's all he needed to do.
But because of the depth of depression that he was in and the state of mind that he was in, the only thing that he felt he could do in that moment to seek any sort of release from this depression was to talk to Amie.
So, you're going to be wondering, well, why did he bring the syringe if he just wanted to go talk to her? So why is he bringing a syringe? So the defense tries to dispel this argument by saying, well, one reasonable suggestion is that he was bringing it to kill Amie, but there's another also reasonable inference, and that is that maybe he was bringing it to kill himself. Like maybe if things didn't go well, or maybe if they spoke and she just crushed his world, he would just end it right then and there. And that's why he brought it. So there's perhaps reasonable doubt why he was bringing that syringe with him to Amie's house.
One reasonable inference of him bringing the syringe to her house and inside of her house is that he intended to kill her. Another reasonable inference is that he brought it intending to kill himself.
Now he acknowledges that there was a struggle, and now the question is, okay, well, did he throw her off the balcony or not? So what type of evidence are you going to have that he didn't throw her off the balcony? So the defense's suggestion is that no, he did not throw her off the balcony, and this was actually her trying to, I guess, get away from him, and she climbed on the balcony herself. And one of the things that he's going to say is that one of the experts, the accident reconstructionist, is going to say that one of the possibilities in her starting point to end up in the position that she was found was actually by hanging on to the balcony and then letting go, or losing your footage, or losing your grip. That was a possible way that she could have ended up in the position that she was found. And therefore the defense is going to make the case that, well, so that's a reasonable way that she could have ended up in that position, which would mean that she was just kind of trying to get away from him, and she climbed the balcony herself and was, I guess, trying to let herself down, and she lost her footing or whatever it is, and that's how she fell to her own death. And this was not him dropping her off the balcony.
You're going to hear from Mr. Malik that one of those likely scenarios is that she was hanging from the outside of the balcony.
So he concludes his opening statement, the defense, and he says that, therefore, I'm going to ask you not to acquit him. And when you're asking the jury to acquit, that can be sounding like you're asking them to do a lot. So the defense kind of changes it, and he says, I'm going to ask you to convict him, but not to convict him of premeditated murder, but convict him of the lesser charge, which would be, something like involuntary manslaughter. So that is the defense's case. Now, are there any problems with the defense's case? Well, yeah, there's a lot of problems with the defense's case. Number one, why is he wearing gloves? The ring cameras catch him that he's wearing gloves. If he's just going over to talk, what are you wearing gloves for? What do you need gloves for to talk? Number two, what are you disabling the ring cameras for? What are you scared of? You're just going there to talk. Now, of course, you're breaking into her house, so that's not a good idea, but to go and disable the ring cameras, that certainly sounds like you're up to no good. So, that's another question to the defense's side that they didn't answer. Also, what happened? You were just going there to talk. And that's all you need to do, right? That's all you need to do. That was the defense's whole case. All he wanted to do was talk. Well, now she's not interested in talking. So you now strangle her? Now kill her? What is that going to help you? That's not going to help you. If she's dead, she can't talk to you. And if she's refusing to talk to you, so then that's the end of it, right? I mean, it's the only thing that's going to get you help you get out of this depression. So why would you go ahead and kill her then? Why would you go and strangle her? Also, why didn't he kill himself? The suggestion was that he was bringing the syringe to kill himself, right? And obviously the conversation did not go as he was hoping, so that should just sink him into his depression. If he's ready to kill himself, so go inject yourself and kill yourself. Or maybe later that night, go kill yourself. Why didn't you kill yourself? If you're such into deep depression, well, you didn't kill yourself. So the suggestion that you brought this syringe with you, this lethal dose of poison to kill yourself, well, why didn't you use it? Or when you get home, do some other ways to kill yourself. So that was also, and this is where the text message also comes in, where the prosecution said that he texted somebody 45 minutes later, ha, that's funny. If you're in such a depression and you just went, and the only way out of your depression is to go talk to Amie, and she refuses to talk to you, and then you end up killing her or causing her death, would you text somebody 45 minutes later, ha, that's funny? Is that what type of mood you would be in? So that also suggests that this was all premeditated, and then, afterwards he was fine. He did what he needed to do, and therefore he wasn't so depressed. And, he got his revenge, and now he can go and text somebody, ha, that's funny. Okay, so that was a lot of problems with the defense's case. I think the defense has a really, really an uphill battle in order to convince the jury that there's some reasonable doubt here. But something that I noticed that they both did not do, which I always talk about, that in any case that you're ever involved in, if you're a lawyer and you're presenting your case to a jury, what you absolutely have to do, is talk about the burden of proof. You've got to talk about the burden of proof. And if you're the prosecutor, you've got to talk about the burden of proof. And if you're the defense attorney, you've got to talk about the burden of proof. You can't ignore it. You've got to tell the jury what your burden is. So as a prosecutor, you've got to let the jury know my burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'm embracing that. I'm happy to do that. I'm going to show you how I'm going to prove everything beyond a reasonable doubt. And as a defense attorney, if you're getting up and you think that you have some great arguments, well, then tell the jury and remind the jury that the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, which is so high, and I've just presented to you all of this reasonable doubt. And that was glaringly, in my opinion, it was glaringly missing in this case. So I guess we will see how the case pans out, and that was my take on the opening statements on this case. Please, again, like and subscribe to this channel so we can continue bringing you this trial analysis. Looking forward to next time.